Hi, I'm Eric Price with LI-COR Biosciences. In this video, I'll show you how to perform maintenance on your LI-8250 multiplexer system. Specifically, we'll talk about maintaining the multiplexer itself. This includes changing both the filters that filter air from the chamber to the multiplexer and from the multiplexer to the analyzers. Let's get started. This is the inside of the LI-8250 multiplexer. Anytime you're performing maintenance on this instrument, make sure to disconnect power first. There is not much you will need to do for maintenance on this instrument. If you do need to replace the pump, we describe how to do that in a separate video. But really, the only typical maintenance you'll need to do is replacing the filters. There are 8 filters here that scrub the air from dirt, dust, pollen, particulates of any kind from the air coming from the chambers. There's also a single Ballston filter that's after the solenoid manifold to again protect any analyzers from dirt or dust or pollen, anything like that. So if you are noticing a flow rate of 1.9 liters per minute or less, or no flow at all, you may need to replace these filters. You can find the sample flow rate in the real-time variables when you're making a measurement and connected to the multiplexer using the software, or you can find it in the data file itself. So if your flow rate is less than 1.9 liters per minute, it's not a bad idea to replace all of the filters at the same time. First, we'll replace the Ballston filter. This is held in place by 2 quick connect fittings. How to remove them: you push on the orange part of the connector and the connector should come off like this. Same with the other connector here, and the filter is free. You'll need to slide it out of the cable tie that's holding it in place. And I do want to point out that the Ballston filter has a directional arrow. That arrow does matter. The air is designed to flow into the filter this way only. So make sure that you note which direction the old filter was. Take that out, grab a new Ballston filter from your spares kit and put it in the same way the other filter was. So you'll slide it into the cable ties to keep it secure, and then push the quick connect fittings onto both ends to secure them in place like that. Next, we'll replace each of the 8 filters here. Again, these are directional. It's difficult to see on the filter itself, but there's sort of a raised arrow here indicating that the flow should go this way. So you can see that the air comes in from the air inlet on the chamber side, goes into the filter as it's supposed to, and the larger end here is closest to the solenoid valve over here. So how do we remove a filter? You can try to just pull on the tubing directly. Sometimes that works, but if that is too difficult, if it's on there too tight, you may need to use shear cutters, diagonal cutters, flush cutters like this to cut a small piece of the tubing near the hose barb. You want to make sure that you don't scratch the hose barb itself, because that could introduce a new leak. But we can cut a small wedge-shaped piece of tubing near the hose barb, and that will allow us to have some freedom to remove it easily. So again, you want to make sure that you're very careful not to cut the hose barb or scratch the hose barb itself. But just get in there and cut out a small wedge-shaped piece of tubing. And that may loosen it up enough to be able to pull on it. And then you should be able to remove the entire filter and tubing assembly and put the new one on. Remember, it is directional, so make sure the large end is near the solenoid valve. These come in the spares kit as well, but you may need to order them separately if you've used all of those up. Push it onto both ends, both hose barbs here, just like this. And make sure it's tight. After you've replaced all of the filters, I would recommend doing a leak test, which is described in another video, to make sure that you haven't introduced any new leaks into the system. Once you've replaced the filters, make sure that you discard the old filters because they look exactly the same as a new filter. So make sure you throw them away. If you notice that there is dirt or dust or pollen in the lower tubes or even the tubing over here, you may want to replace that as well. There's a roll of tubing in the spares kit as well. If you notice condensation in this tubing, there are a couple of things that you can do to minimize that. A small amount of condensation is normal. The solenoid manifold itself is designed to be able to withstand some amount of water, but the real issue would be if liquid water makes its way to the analyzer on the other side of the multiplexer. That can cause a lot of problems with especially laser-based analyzers. So, some ways to minimize condensation would be to increase the purge times in your measurement configuration. The idea is that when the chamber closes down onto the soil, evaporation causes water vapor to build up inside the chamber, but we can minimize the amount of condensation that occurs by increasing the purge time before and after the chamber closes, flushing out the entire system with ambient air, which presumably is a little less humid than during the chamber measurement itself. So you may want to consider increasing the purge times in your configuration. Another thing you can do is increase the temperature of the multiplexer itself. You can set it out in the sun, and that may increase its temperature enough to prevent condensation. If you're noticing a lot of liquid water in these tubes, you may need to disconnect them, like we showed here, and remove them from the multiplexer entirely and flush them out with dry air from a tank or other source. You may need to do that with this tubing as well. If the entire system has significant water in it, that can cause a lot of problems, especially for the analyzer. So you may need to bring the entire system in from the field and dry it out in a lab setting, even removing the tubing and flushing out the entire system with dry air as well. And that's how to perform maintenance on your LI-8250 soil flux system. We have several other videos on our website about specific details, more about the system and how to use it. And as always, feel free to contact us or our distributors around the world if you have any questions.